Ooh, ooh, big fish ish. Y'all know what it is. So we're going to get right into it. So today we're going to talk about fear. And fear is something that it influences us all. Reading the book, which Napoleon Hill book was that? I believe that was the first one, Think and Grow Rich. It talks about the different fears. Now I'm reading the book that he wrote before that, his Law of Success, and fear. It's a problem for all of us. And the more I'm reading the book, and they're talking about fear and how it can cause different diseases, different things. Whatever we fear, that's what we constantly think of. So therefore, it ends up happening. And it's showing up in more and more conversations that I'm having, whether it's political, whether it's religious, just across the board. It seems that that's the greatest influence in determining what groups we belong to and where we align ourselves. So let me get into it a little bit. So was talking to my dad about a friend of his, and we spent a lot of time down in Florida, and his friend was saying like, oh, I don't know if I could do Florida. That's a red state. And my brother and I were kind of just sitting there like, it's a different generation. We understand that generationally, things are different to where, a lot of our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, their generations, they saw race differently. They saw racial issues differently. They had to confront different situations that we don't necessarily have to confront, and vice versa. But they still live with a lot of the fear from their parents and their parents' parents. And a lot of that fear can be passed down to us if we allow it to. But overall, it just sits differently. Like fear plays a role in different ways for different people just based on their previous experience, I would say. So, here we are, we're talking about, being down in Florida. And I get it. Some of the new gun laws that are coming into place, I'm a little like, whoa, that's for real. I remember my brother sent me the new one where I believe anybody that, as of like June or July, anybody that can legally purchase a firearm now has the right to carry that firearm. I'm used to, when I was in Indiana, you had to buy the gun. You had to first legally buy the gun. Then you had to apply for a concealed weapons permit to carry. No, that's not the case down in Florida. And I believe there's a few other states, Kansas, maybe a few other states that I'm missing as well, that have the same thing. So I can look at both sides of it. However, when I'm looking at, the fear thing, and probably the person that he spoke to didn't even know that this new gun law was coming into play, but that's how fear can work. Fear can have you not moving somewhere just because more people in that state voted for this political party rather than the one that you align with. That's what fear can do. And that goes to show you where we are in this country. And as much as we like to identify all the areas and that, we've come so far, there's a lot of areas, especially with race relations, that we're going backwards. And I'm not going to say that we didn't come anywhere, we never, climbed it a little bit, but where we are right now, and I think a lot of that is, it's all of our faults, but especially when it comes to a lot of the racial issues with the victimhood, we allow different parties or different groups to play on our fears, to kind of stoke the fire up and have you going back and living almost in the mindset that your grandparents had, your great grandparents had, where that fear is there. And I believe that a lot of it is unwarranted. You can never be too careful. I'm a firm believer that if you're trying to win, everybody else here is competition. It just is what it is. And this is a world of, it's a survival. Life is survival. Life is survival. Life is winning. Life is all these different things that can require you to compete with others. And a lot of times when you compete with others, there's going to be a winner and a loser. It is what it is. Somebody's going to have more power. Somebody's going to have less. Somebody's going to, get the spoils of, that particular win. Others are going to have to deal with the defeat. It just is what it is. And I'm saying all that, but let's get back to the initial point. Fear. We allow fear to control us in every area of our lives. We saw this in 2020 with, I don't even want to say the word. Somebody actually used the word to describe it that I liked, the experiment. I will say that I think that it very much was an experiment. We can argue the intentions of everything, but as of right now, I'm pretty confident saying that it was an experiment. Let me cut that off, put it on Do Not Disturb. But there's fear. There was fear. Why did people want to stay in the house? The fear. Every time we were turning on the TV, it was like we were seeing a horror movie. They're rolling out people, throwing them in freezer trucks. I remember they played a video on one of the news stations in New York or somewhere in the States, and they were saying it was like supposed to be a hospital in New York, but then we found out that it was somewhere like overseas or something like that. But it was a horror movie. It was 24 hours of nonstop. What's the toll? What's the death toll? How bad is it going to get? How worse is it going to? Everything was inciting fear. And that fear plays a role in us, not just mentally, but physically. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the placebo test, but fear is real. What we believe happens. If we believe that we're healthy, then we'll be healthy. If we believe that something's coming that is going to destroy a large percentage of us, then just us having that on our minds, that fear, it'll control our decisions and not necessarily put us in the best possible position to make logical, rational decisions. But it's just fear-based decisions. And it got me kind of going down a rabbit hole because I was thinking about all the areas in which we're controlled by fear. And I was having a conversation over the weekend, and I was relating politics to religious groups, political groups to religious groups. And I said that they operate very similar, like, at least in how they deal with certain people. A lot of it's fear-based. Matter of fact, both parties. I know I always talk a lot about the Democrats, but the Republicans, they operate by fear as well. Both parties operate on fear because they know that to get your attention, they have to earn your attention. Why? What is going to make you tune into me 24/7? I'm not an entertainment channel. I'm a news channel. So what can I bring to the table that's going to have you locked in? It's going to be a little entertainment when you got a guy like Trump running for office, but it's going to be fear. It's going to be fear. I have to create a problem. We always talk about this. It's sales. I have to first create a problem, if there isn't one, or I have to make it bigger. The greater I can make the problem, the more I can have you relying on me to solve that particular problem. The greater I make the problem, the greater control I can have on you if you believe that I'm an answer to that problem. And now I got you hooked. And I see that happening in politics. You see it happen in religion. And I'm not saying that all fear is not bad. All fear is not bad. One of the principles that, I took from somebody close to me, and they told me that I think that every young man, especially, should have a little bit of fear for their father. I understood it when I first heard it, and I understand it probably more now. And I'm sure when I have kids, I'll probably understand it even more. Fear can be a good thing. Fear is not always a negative thing, but how people manipulate control based on fear, that's when we get into how it causes problems. Love. love isn't necessarily seen as a bad thing, but if somebody manipulates the love, it can be used as a weapon. So fear can be used for a lot of benefits. Fear can be used for, a lot of negative things. For an example, if you're fearful of, becoming unhealthy and out of shape, chances are you're going to work out. Well, actually, based on the book, when you're fearful of something, you got to overcome the fear. And I would argue that the best way to overcome the fear is, even when I was reading in the book, it's like you're leaving something out. You're taking something out of your life, but you got to replace it with something else. So you can't just remove the fear. The best way to remove the fear is to add something else that is going to remove that fear. So you add in the working out and all that. You'll still have an understanding in your head. I don't even know. I'm kind of working through it as I'm talking, but that fear may always be there, but you'll know exactly how you can replace that fear with something that directly addresses what you are fearful of at that particular time. So we talked about politics. We know how, both sides use fear. The Republicans will be on their side saying like, oh, in 5 years, everybody's going to be LGBTQ. Everybody's going. I get it. Trust me, I'm fearful of a lot of that stuff. Of a lot of where these agendas are going if nobody does decide to say like, hold up, now y'all going too far. So I understand the fears on both sides. I understand the fears when it comes to religious groups. A lot of the religions, I was brought up in the Christian faith. Christianity, one of the things that we fear the most is what happens when we die. What happens when we die? Nobody knows. If somebody has an answer to that, and it's like, oh, you go to heaven, but to go to heaven, you first have to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. So you're using that to convince people. And I was having a conversation with Kamari earlier, and she was saying, well, not all religious groups, use that. And it's there. It's there. And now it may be a little bit different because once you develop a following, then getting people to follow you is different than the things that we have to do to continuously have them follow us. It's no different than sales. Getting somebody to become a client or getting to somebody to buy a product is one thing, but getting them to continuously use your product, that's a different thing. So neither here nor there, but we were just talking about how the fear is still used. The fear is still used, even if it's a fear of just living the wrong way. Like I said, it may not be a good or bad thing. It may not just be a bad thing. It may not just be a good thing. It's depending on how it's used. Why do kids join gangs? Fear. There's a reason why kids are more likely to join gangs when they don't have a father in the house. What is a father's role? To protect, right? To protect. So you can easily understand how a young man, especially who's growing up without a father to protect him and to show him how to protect himself and how to protect the family, how they would be drawn into, based on their fear of not having that protection, to join an organization, to join a gang, that they would have protection. It's still motivated by fear. Why don't people ever reach their potential? They're scared. They fear. What if? Fear going broke. The poverty was a big one in the book that I'm reading with Napoleon Hill. That fear of poverty, it'll prevent us from doing a lot of stuff. A lot of different fears. The fear of embarrassment, failure, all these different things, they prevent us from, in this particular instance, when it comes to not achieving our potential, the fear prevents us from even trying. It prevents us from even seeing what we're capable of doing. And that's just another example of how strong fear can be. So when we look at a lot of the things that we're doing, I think we need to dig a little deeper into why we're doing them. Why are we belonging to this group? How does this group win our vote? How does this group get us to not only become a member, or not only for our grandparents to become a member, but for our parents to become a member, for us to become. Why do we join certain things? Why do we make different decisions throughout the day? And when we understand fear, then I believe it allows us to attack it the right way. Because if fear is simply an obstacle or a challenge that we have to get past, then we first need to understand it so that way we can understand how to attack it, how to address it. All right. So just understanding that the impact that fear can have on our decision making, on the direction of our life, on so many different areas in our life. Like you heard me talk about the example with, where you want to move. Oh, I can't move because, I'm scared of leaving such and such. I get it. In the book, they talk about a fear of losing a loved one. And it's not just losing a loved one to, them passing and transitioning, but it could just be, you breaking up with somebody. Huge fear. I'm sure y'all all have gone through that. I've gone through it. You have these fears. They're real. Especially when we're, certain relationships that we have, it's hard to see how life can be, forget great, but just good without certain people in our life. In that moment, it's a fear because the fear overwhelms us. But like anything else, it's no different than, they talk about the bully, how to defeat a bully. You got to punch him in the mouth, right? Fear. We gotta start approaching fear with that same energy. Like we got to run through fear. Fear should only be used as a weapon for us to get to where we want to get to, rather than a weapon that's used against us to prevent us from getting to where we want to get to. So fear. Think about some of the ways that you're on autopilot. It's another way of me saying that you're controlled. Think of some of the areas that you just do certain things that it wasn't because you thought about it for a long time. It wasn't because you developed a plan, you researched, you did all these things, but you just do it. Think about the things that you just do. And why do we just do them? Think about the groups that we're in. Why are we in them? Did we just join to join? What caused this? So when we think about that, then take it a step further and say, how does this group keep us invested in them? How do they keep me so interested in what they have going on? Are they manipulating my fear? Are they using my fear to get control of me? So when we look at things this way, it's going to allow us to see things not only more logically, but to kind of take a step back and get a bigger picture of everything. Now, it may make you say, like, you know what? This is still the area. This is still the direction that I want to go. Cool. But at least you'll have that step back to where you can kind of see the bigger picture and get a less biased perspective on what group we're joining, what decisions we're making, and what actions we're taking. All right. So just wanted us to kind of think about that. Fear, I think, prevents so many of us from, accomplishing our goals, from catching our dreams, from deciding to even chase our dreams, and just living a life that all of us can live. Fear determines that. And we have to understand that whenever we talk about fear, we're talking about the principle of autosuggestion. What we think about up here gets projected into the real world, and then we invite back that same energy. So if we're fearful of somebody passing away, if we're fearful of poverty, our minds don't work to say, oh, you're fearful of poverty, so we don't want poverty. No, your mind is just going to focus on whatever it is that you're thinking of the most, whatever it is that we're thinking of the most at that particular time. So if we're constantly fearful of poverty, that's the energy that we're projecting out, and that's what we're going to constantly receive. We got to change the way that we think. And instead of being fearful of something, the best way for me to do it is to change the way I think, is to go out there and take actions towards overcoming whatever it is that I'm fearful of. Simple. If I'm fearful of not being able to pay rent, or, not being able to live between Jersey and Miami, I'm not thinking about the fear. You want to know why? Because I'm just going to consume my mind and my thoughts with all the opportunities that I have. And when I'm focusing on the opportunities that I have and how I can capitalize on those, then all that fear, it goes to the back burner, and eventually it's out of there. So one of the exercises that we do on our morning, on the wake up calls, y'all know, every time I say morning, I just say, stop saying that. We got to think of it. Just side note. I don't want to go on a tangent. But one of the things that we do on our wake up show is we intentionally take 15 seconds to just think about positive thoughts. What our life looks like today, a week from today, a year from today, 20 years from today, who's involved, what it smells like, the scent that we're going to have, what the sand and the beach smells like, what it feels like between our toes, what our loved one's expression on their face is going to be. All those different things, feel it in every sense, vividly. But before we do that, we throw out all the negative stuff. All the negative stuff that's just there. I got to do this. I got to do that. This person's pissing me off. I can't stand it. Whatever it may be, throw that to the side. Throw it to the side. Throw it to the side. Even if you can't throw it away, throw it to the side. Now spend 15 seconds just focusing on how amazing different points of our lives are going to be. We close our eyes, we envision it. 15 seconds. After that 15 seconds, that stuff is gone. And even if it's sitting right there, it just looks different, because now it just looks like an opportunity. It looks like opportunities, just a bag of opportunities and challenges for me to just get better by confronting and approaching in a direct manner. So we don't worry about fear. It is what it is. If it's there, we address it. And sometimes we use it to our advantage. Fear is power. It's energy. What's the difference between kinetic and energy? Whatever. It's energy that we can use. All right. And it has the potential to be energy that we can use in a very, very positive way. But we also have to understand that if it has that positive potential, then it also has what's on the other side. All right. I don't even want to talk about it. We just thinking positively right now. So think positive. Let's confront those fears. Let's be open to the people that care about us, our loved ones, our mastermind group. All right. We're going to talk about mastermind more and more, and the benefits of bringing together a mastermind group. If it's with your significant other, if it's with people in your family, if it's with people outside of your family, creating those trusted groups, being honest, and addressing our fears together can be a very positive thing. We don't have to go at this by ourselves. Some decisions, that we make, we are responsible for, but there's not extra credit out here for doing it alone. So at least not that I'm aware of. Matter of fact, it's probably the opposite. There's probably more extra credit when you do it with others, because you're bringing them on board, you're sharing that energy, and that's compounding throughout the universe. So I don't even know what the topic was, because we're not even going to address that word. Just opportunities. We'll address it. We're not scared of it. Fear. It can cause us a lot of ills, but it can also unlock the doors to everything that we envision in our wildest dreams. And by wild, I mean things that can definitely happen. So with that, I'll let y'all rock out. Let me know y'all thoughts. Let me know y'all feedback. Let me know if this is a topic that y'all want to hear more about. Let me know your experiences when it comes to dealing with fear, overcoming fear, and coming out on the other side a better person. So I'll let y'all go. Strength and honor. Get to the bag with integrity, of course. And I'll see y'all soon. Ooh.